Hi, I'm Greg Wheeler, Mayor of the City of Bremerton, and we're going to talk today about a major initiative of mine to beautify our city. So there's two programs that will accomplish this. One is proactive code enforcement, and the other one is the receivership program, which deals with abandoned properties that have fallen in major disrepair. So we will be meeting with Sara, our brand new code enforcement specialist, and talking about how we're going to accomplish this. So thank you, and I hope you join me. Hello, Sara. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. So we're out here and we're just going to talk a little bit about what we do and what you do for the city. And I just want to say that bringing you on board and expanding our program has been a long time coming. You know, I started a program back in 2016. It's called LIFT. It's Leadership and Investment Fostering Transformation. And we tried to do this job with volunteers. And you know, it's hard. Volunteers are hardworking, but they're also volunteers. And you know, the reason I brought this forward is this brush that we're looking at here, and what I had to work my way through. You know, what it tends to do is, for somebody who's less agile, they end up out in the street. You know, and we're talking about elderly folks and folks with a wheelchair or a stroller. Going in the street is not a good thing. So, you know, that becomes a problem, and then it's how do we fix it? Now, with the reactive code enforcement program, which is what we used to have, you know, we used to depend on these folks to call and complain.
Right.
And so now with being proactive, it's the city's way of showing leadership. It gets them out of the mix. They don't feel like they might be targeted or retaliated against, and also they might just pick another place to either walk or live. So Sara, can you tell me how you identify violations, and then maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So a big part of what I follow for the violations, I have on these door knockers that I go around the community and give out. So grass and weeds, anything above 12 inches, including sidewalk strips, because definitely a lot of people don't really include the sidewalk strips as a part of their home. Right. Any kind of vegetation that, like you said, encroaching on the right-of-way for pedestrians, that blocks them, cars on the lawn, that sort of thing. And basically my job is just to be proactive and go around the community and find neighborhoods where I see violations, and I'll park the car and I'll just walk the neighborhood delivering out door knockers. Yeah,
and you know, the thing I've been hearing, and I anticipated this because during my campaign I knocked on close to 16,000 doors, and this is one of the things that folks identified. They were concerned about properties, and they were concerned because they weren't sure how it would be received if they couldn't communicate well with the neighbor, or they felt it would be taken wrong, how it would be received.
Right.
With the city showing leadership and stepping up, then it takes our citizens out of that part of the mix. Some folks are comfortable with their relationships. They will call if they need to.
Right.
You know, they make it clear.
Right.
Other ones, they don't feel comfortable, and not all of our houses are safe. And
right.
So there's that type of fear. So, you know, with the city showing leadership, we kind of set the tone for what's an expectation for our city. It protects property values. It makes it safe for our children to play, because this isn't the worst things we see. We're focusing on this. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the proactive aspect of it, especially because I feel like it's human nature where people don't like complaining.
Yeah.
They don't want to be seen as someone who nags and that sort of thing. So I like that the city is essentially, you know, allowing me to go out and, you know, take that position where people may not be too comfortable with it. And, you know, we're not looking at penalizing people. We want the city to be more livable space. And so I think it's definitely a great initiative that has been started.
Yeah, and from what we find out from folks more often, and I've learned this from folks calling me or through listening to you, that they're surprised there's even a code.
Yeah.
That they have to keep the brush clear.
Right.
And in some places they can't park their cars in their front lawn.
Right.
And they almost are apologetic. And we were
Right.
trying to say, please don't worry.
Right.
You know, we're here to work with you.
No, exactly. And that's the biggest thing where I've gotten probably 60% of the phone calls are people apologizing, like very embarrassed. And it's a lot of people don't go on municipal websites to read what's allowed and not allowed in terms of vegetation or parking. So it's understandable why a lot of people don't know, but that's part of what we're doing is educating a lot of the people in the city.
Yeah, and once they learn that, and actually if they want to come out and talk with us, they could probably, on this particular issue, they could realize that this is a mobility issue.
Right.
Unless you're very agile and you can jump around, this is not really passable.
Right, and I don't expect someone, you know, with a stroller and an infant to go in a busy street, you know, to get around. And for most part, when I tell neighbors that, they're like, oh, I understand. A lot of them don't even think about that part.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, like I said, I'd like the community to be more walkable and to see people out on streets that maybe they wouldn't walk normally.
Right.
But now that it's more accessible, you're more likely to walk it.
You know, we've talked about compliance, and I know we're getting pretty good compliance rate.
Right.
Because folks do want to, you know, they want to make sure that they're, you know, good neighbors.
Right.
Yeah. So once you've identified a code violation, and this is really a Beautify Bremerton, and it's an extension of the LIVE program, but it is code violation.
Right.
So what do you do once you've identified it?
So I'll notate with photographs. You know, I'll photograph obviously for a before picture. I'll deliver a door knocker to the address, and I'll notate exactly, you know, what the issue is. If it's something that isn't exactly easily identifiable, like sometimes tree limbs being too low over the right of way, I always make sure to notate what the exact issue is. I'll leave it on their front door, and essentially that gives citizens 2 weeks to comply. And in that 2 weeks, I'll come back. I'm more than happy to give extensions if someone needs some help, to have someone come in and assist them in cleaning up the yard. But again, usually within 2 weeks or shortly after, I'll come back, snap a photo of the after, which generally they'll comply, and then just close out the case.
You know, one other aspect of this is it's a way sometimes for us to check in on our citizens.
Right.
You know, we don't know what circumstances have hit a household where everything just falls apart. If it's trash piling up or the weeds really get overgrown.
Right.
And if it is somebody who's fallen on hard times, and some folks do,
Right.
then at least we know about it.
Right, right.
And we have a wealth of resources that we can refer folks to.
Right.
And for any one of a number of situations, and to me, it's to ignore it has never been the right thing.
Right.
It's better to be out front, go talk with folks, and then learn what's going on.
Right, and I agree. I mean, I've gotten really excellent phone calls from, there was an elderly woman that called me first to say, you know, she lives alone, she's a widow, she couldn't take care of the trees outside of her house and she wasn't sure what to do. And shortly after that, a young man that's a neighbor called and he said, hey, you know, my neighbor told me about what's going on, I'll cut everything for her.
Yeah.
And so he was just asking me what parameters he needed to follow. And that's nice to hear that, you know, citizens who probably would never interact with one another are starting to meet each other, and, you know, neighbors are coming together to help neighbors. That's I think a really good outcome of this process.
Absolutely, and I've had people call me, and so I have it's a growing resource list of they want to come out and actually trim.
Right.
You know, once they hear that it's it's a situation where somebody's really deserving, they really line up to come out and help, and that's just an example of our giving community.
Right, and like you're saying, it's just great to see that. You know, I like when I hear feedback from people who are just saying like, oh, thank you so much. You know, I always wanted to talk to this neighbor and tell them to clean up their yard, but I don't know them. I didn't know how it would be received. And their yard's cleaned up and it's so nice. And, you know, I can actually see them when they're out on their front porch kind of thing. So it's been, I think, a really good process so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm proud that our city is moving forward with this initiative. You know, the one other thing we're going to talk about is it's the receivership program.
Right.
You know, it's funny when I look at what you do for a living, I look at it as beautifying our city.
Right.
You know, we have other programs where it's making it safe, it's making it livable, walkable, you know, friendly.
Right.
And but we have these technical terms like code enforcement. It makes
Right.
it sound like we're carrying a hammer around.
Right.
So, and really that's not the case. And the receivership program is another, it sounds technical, but all that is a tool that the city is going to use to get these properties that have fallen into this zombie area, you know,
Right.
where they might be bank owned and the bank just wants to turn their back because they're so horrible.
Right.
We have dozens of them in the city, and we're going to go take a look at one of them, and people can take their guesses on whether that's a high priority for us or not.
Yeah, I have the perfect property that you should see right now.
Okay, I'm looking forward to going out and checking it out because
Yeah.
I know we're going to take these one at a time. After we do each one, that neighborhood's going to be better.
Exactly. So this was the property that I was referencing earlier.
Sara, this is actually one that I did see during my campaign.
Right.
You know, when you get out and you knock on close to 16,000 doors, you're gonna notice that, and I hate to say this, this is not an isolated incident.
Right.
Okay, so we have other problems in the city. They're well documented. They're on our list to be dealt with.
Right.
But you know, just kind of, I do want to highlight the value of why it's important to have you out in the field. If you were out and about and you found a home like this and it wasn't on our list, I mean, what would you do? What's your first steps, and take me through the process?
So essentially, you know, I would start with the door knocker. There's the time frame for compliance, usually 2 weeks, like I said. So from there, if there's no contact and nothing's done, like the owner hasn't called to ask for an extension, nothing's been, you know, fixed outside, they didn't whack their weeds or anything. From there, generally it goes to a letter, and same thing if the letter sometimes bounces back as, you know, the return to sender. I can look up in our system, you know, is there water that's on? Is there power coming in? That usually is a flag to us if there's essentially to show us that it's vacant, is if the water's been shut off, there's no power, all the return to sender. So it, I think, allows the city to maybe realize maybe this is one of those properties that
Right.
is sitting empty in the city and can open itself up to a lot of problems.
Right, and so that's and I see that as a major value. You know, a lot of these that I've seen, they're almost legacy properties where
Right.
they've been around a long time. It took a long time to get to them,
Right.
and there wasn't a program to get them taken care of. And so the receivership part of my initiative, and this is a big part of my initiative, is to address these properties through the court system. So after you've identified this property, we've determined that this is bank owned, it's an abandoned bank owned property, then we go through a process where we ask the court to appoint a receiver for the property. And that's just basically somebody who's going to represent the property, get it marketed, and get it back out into the, you know, either to have a new homeowner in it.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, it's about this neighborhood. You know, when I walk these neighborhoods, and when you're in your scene and you're walking,
Right.
you realize we're on a path to a school. We are in a neighborhood where people have children, and these families have pets. So could you imagine somebody coming back here, and I know we're on the same page, we're speaking the same language as public servants. How would you like any of your children or your offspring or friends come back here and find this disaster,
Right.
fall into it, be stuck with, we have seen a needle here,
Right.
or see that, or go inside exploring and really find some bad stuff. And the same with pets. This is why we do this, you know, and this might be something that someone would consider negative, but to me, I like identifying problems, and that's the first step to fixing them.
Right.
And so when you come across these, I look forward to you reporting right away. I look forward to us getting on it right away, and we've got a whole list. We've just approved 5 of properties that are similar to this. And I'll let folks guess if they think this is high on our priority list. I think they've seen enough snapshots, they can make their own guess. But this is one of 5 that we are currently on our radar that we're going to go after.
Right.
Yeah, so do you ever feel like you need to call for backup when you come to a place like this?
A little bit. I was shocked the first time I came back here, I have to say. And that's why it's great that the city is really taking strong and quick action to try to get this rectified as fast as they can, because, you know, this is a community of neighbors who are very concerned about this.
Yeah.
And so it's very good that the city is telling the community that we're not going to let this happen anymore.
You know, folks, if I would invite you to come to my website to learn more about this program, and to call or email me if you have any questions. And please don't hesitate to call Sara or email Sara with questions. This is just designed to get us out in the community and get proactive on cleaning up these properties so we can get these neighborhoods functioning and back to where they need to be. So thanks again, and again, don't hesitate to call or email if you have any questions. And thanks for joining me today.